Not a million miles away from the one you drive. Okay, there are a few differences. We're talking about 300,000 pounds worth of turbocharged power, capable of hitting speeds of over 200 kilometers an hour on snow, gravel and mountainside roads. That's what the cars look like, but what of the men behind the wheel? Sebastian Loeb of the Kronos Citroën team, the reigning World Drivers' Champion, he's the man to beat. Petter Solberg, the effervescent Norwegian, is a true superstar. He took his Subaru to the World Championship in 2003, but recently he's been second best to Loeb. 2006 is Marcus Gronholm's first season with the Ford team. He's the hero of the rally-mad nation of Finland. His style is flat-out attack. Also look out for the new British hope Matthew Wilson. Still a teenager, but he heads the challenge of the Stobart Ford team. Austria's Manfred Stoll and Norway's Henning Solberg spearhead the OMV Peugeot team. A couple of tough customers who know their way round the WRC. Another Austrian, Andreas Eigner, heads the Red Bull Skoda team. He'll be supported by Gilles Panizzi. Also look out for the likes of Tony Gardemeister, Gigi Gali and Francois Duval, who will be making a challenge on some of the events in privately entered cars. These may be the toughest and most talented men in motorsport, but they can't do it on their own.
Left of a crest, is it down short, one right, opens long, he makes a crest, it's a really short right left, opens left to long.
The pace notes delivered by the co-driver provide the driver with a detailed description of the road ahead, describing the shape of corners, the speed they should be taken at, and if there are any hidden dangers. This is a unique relationship. If it works, the man at the wheel can maintain the maximum speeds for these alien environments. If it goes wrong, it really goes wrong. The WRC is made up of 16 rounds spread across 5 continents, so look forward to the snow of Sweden, the mountain-top stages in Argentina, the fast forest roads of Finland and the outback of Australia.
For the second season running as reigning world champion, Sebastian Loeb was the first man over the start ramp at the ceremonial start in Monte Carlo's Casino Square. And the following morning, in the mountains, he and co-driver Daniel Eleanor were the first away from the start line. Despite the changes in team setup, it seemed business as usual for the French crew. They were more than 25 seconds faster than anyone else on this opening stage. These were classic Monte Carlo conditions, dry tarmac changing to ice and snow as the cars climbed higher into the mountains. Most crews had selected a partly studded winter tyre. Even so, Marcus Gronholm was given an early reminder of the sudden changes in grip. One man not on winter tyres was Petter Solberg. He'd gone for a racing slick and lost a massive 2 minutes to Loeb on the first stage. And worse was to come for the Norwegian. Retirement on the road section at the end of the day. Monte Carlo has never been kind to Petter. Loeb had built on his early dominance, taking a lead of well over a minute into the final stage of the day, and already looked on his way to a record-equalling fourth successive Monte Carlo victory. But nobody expected that. The man who had barely made a wrong move in 2 seasons as world champion was stuck 20 metres down a ravine.
To make a mistake in this condition, I don't like it, but this Monte Carlo this year is really tricky and it's really difficult to stay on the road.
But the car was repairable and he would return the next day under the restart rules. That left Marcus Gronholm as leader, followed by the unlikely name of Subaru's Chris Atkinson on his Monte Carlo debut. He was promoted to second, and Tony Gardemeister in an Astra Racing Peugeot 307 was third. Marcus Gronholm has never won a tarmac event, but as day 2 progressed, it looked like only an incident like that Loeb had suffered could stop him from achieving this, as he built up a lead of more than 2 minutes on day 2. On the move up the leaderboard, Manfred Stoll of OMV Peugeot. The Austrian moved up to second and into a fight for the podium positions with Tony Gardemeister. Gardemeister finished second here last year, and although no longer in a manufacturer team, was intent on repeating this. And it was the Finn who would be on top in this battle at the end of the second day, but by just a minuscule 0.2 of a second. Performance of the day though, Sebastian Loeb. He won all 5 stages on day 2 and climbed back to 4th. So as day 3 dawned, with Gronholm out of sight, Loeb's mission was to make up the 36 seconds that separated him from second place. But resistance was dogged. Stoll hung on for 3 stages, eventually being overhauled on stage 15. The Austrian would finish 4th, a strong start to his first full season in a WRC car. Gardemeister hung on until the final stage, but as Loeb made the final pass over the Turini, the splits were telling him that he'd made up the time and more. It was looking like his salvage job was complete. Gronholm set out on the final day knowing that only error or fate could stop him from winning his first Monte Carlo. And memories of last year when he threw away his chance of finishing second when caught out by a patch of snow on the descent from the Col de Turini may have been at the back of his mind. But his only scare was some smoke from one of his wheels following a minor collision on the last stage. Finally, he and co-driver Timo Rautiainen could add this most famous of events to their list of wins, and on their Ford debut as well. Further down the leaderboard, Subaru's Stefan Sarrazin finished 5th. His teammate Chris Atkinson hung on to take 6th.
Marcus, congratulations, a new team, a new car and a very first victory here in Monte Carlo. You must be very pleased.
Yeah, that's very nice. I mean, to win first time with a team and a car, so it's the best.
With a healthy covering of snow and temperatures as low as -15, conditions were perfect for the Swedish rally. But the Petter Solberg fans would be disappointed. This landing on the very first stage broke his rear drive shaft, and he would lose nearly 2 minutes to the front runners before he reached service.
How is it possible? You know, all the time?
So the battle at the top became a head-to-head between Marcus Gronholm and Sebastian Loeb. The most likely challenger to the leading duo was Ford's Mikko Hirvonen. He was in crowd-pleasing form over Collins Crest, but on the same stage, the drive belt in his water pump broke. With his engine overheating, the team told him to stop. With Hirvonen retired, the battle for 3rd place became one between 2 Mitsubishis, Gigi Galis and the Lancer of the host nations, Daniel Carlson. And this would be a thriller. For much of the last 2 days, the gap between them would be measured in tenths of seconds. At the top, things were starting to look more certain. Over the first 2 days, Marcus Grönholm chalked up 7 stage wins to open up a lead of 25 seconds over Loeb. The Finnish driver has won this event 3 times since 2000, and he looked to be confirming he's the master on the snow and ice. This was Henning Solberg's 10th start in the Swedish rally, and he'd fancied his chances of a podium finish. We're with him here on stage 11. Off the racing line and straight through the snowbank. Co-driver Kato Menkerud was buried under snow that had come into the car. And here's another look at that incident. They were soon on the road again, but Solberg could see little through the shattered windscreen. And Kato's boot sorted out that problem. But then they received a reminder of what the windscreen is for. The Peugeot pairing recovered to finish 8th. Henning Solberg's teammate Manfred Stoll was also looking to finish in the points here and had been as high as 4th on day 1. Here he approaches the same corner where Solberg went off. Stoll and co-driver Ilka Miner would not be able to restart. Back to the battle for 3rd. Daniel Carlson entered the final day with a lead over Gali of just 0.3 of a second. He extended that by half a second on the day's first stage. But Gali was not letting go, and they would swap positions on each of the following 4 stages. Carlson would take a lead of just 0.2 of a second into the final stage. After 3 days of these 2 drivers going toe-to-toe, something had to give. And what did give was Gigi Ghali's gearbox. He lost 3rd gear, and that may have been the deciding factor. Carlson was 3rd, his best result in the WRC.
It's unscribable, it's fantastic. I've never been so nervous from the finish until that point here in my whole life, I think. I'm very, very relieved. I can hardly believe it.
Marcus Grönholm had a scare on stage 16. He had to switch to manual gear shift because of a hydraulic leak. This saw his lead over Loeb reduced to less than 15 seconds, but with the service stop next, his car was returned to full working order. Grönholm went on to take the win, and this would be a triple celebration, as it was Marcus's 38th birthday, and also the 50th win for Ford in the WRC's history. Co-driver Tilma Rautiainen sent his greetings.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Grönholm's eventual winning margin just over 30 seconds. And 2 wins from 2 starts saw Grönholm leading the Drivers' Championship with 20 points. Loeb is 2nd on 16. And Grönholm's Ford team were also the pace setters in the Manufacturers' Championship. The Big Finn had definitely earned his birthday cake.
No champagne, no.
Rally Mexico got underway with the traditional display of colour at the opening ceremony in Guanajuato. But Petter Solberg wasn't in the party mood. He arrived here under close scrutiny. He'd failed to finish the previous 2 rounds of the championship. Question marks were being raised about the Subaru's reliability. And in the week preceding this rally, long-time team principal David Lapworth had been moved to another post within ProDrive, the company that runs Subaru's WRC operation. But if the Norwegian was unsettled, he didn't show it. He was fastest on the first 4 stages of the day. Lining up in the positions behind him were Mikko Hirvonen and the top 2 in the championship, Marcus Grönholm and Sebastian Loeb, who, as the first 2 on the stages, was suffering through having to do the road sweeping duties. Grönholm in 3rd was seeking to make it 3 wins from 3 starts this season, and with the benefit of a clean line on the afternoon's repeated stages, he was aiming to make this a reality.
8. Ja vasemmalle
But perhaps he was
katsoi,
attacking too hard.
betoni sisällä.
He brakes too late here. And his focus was in a ditch with a broken drive shaft. He would return under the restart rules, but with no chance of the win. The lumps, bumps and compressions of the Mexican stages make judgment of pace and braking even more crucial. Chris Atkinson, another caught out here. After disappointments in Sweden, when he retired when challenging, Mikko Hirvonen was maybe thinking of a first WRC victory when he started day 2. But on the day's opening test, he was another victim of those up and down stages. Too fast over this small crest, and with all 4 wheels off the ground, his brakes were redundant. The collision with the bank on the left sending him down the drop on the right. After the highs of Monte Carlo and Sweden, it was back down to earth with a bump for Ford boss Malcolm Wilson. The loss of his team's 2 drivers was compounded when his son Matthew, of the Stobart VK Ford team, also went off the road on stage 8.
And left 2 plus in. Start up.
Petter Solberg had maintained his lead throughout the first day, but hadn't been happy with the ability of his Pirelli tyres to deal with the mixture of the Mexican heat and its rough roads. Sebastian Loeb's harder compound BF Goodrich tyres seemed able to handle these conditions much better, and the Frenchman's greater grip saw him take the lead from Solberg on stage 8. The following stages were slower and thus more forgiving of the Subaru's setup, and Solberg showed that he could match Loeb for speed by taking back the lead, but by only a matter of a few seconds. And Loeb retook the lead on stage 12, but stage 13 would be decisive.
Shot 6 left.
That impact broke Solberg's power steering. He would lose nearly 25 seconds by the end of the stage.
Keep left in the shot, 6 right.
Behind Loeb and Solberg, Manfred Stoll was giving another strong performance on his way to 3rd. And 2005 JWRC champion Daniel Sordo was in a position to record his best ever WRC finish as he had moved up to 4th. With just 3 stages on the final day, and one of them the short super special, it looked like there wouldn't be enough kilometres for Solberg to fight back. But his chances of winning would completely disappear on stage 15 when he lost his brakes towards the end of the stage. Second position was the kind of result Solberg needed, but there was still plenty for his technical team to think about before the next round in Spain. But Sebastian Loeb was back in the position we got so used to seeing him in last season, the position of being number 1 on the podium. And in the process, he became the most successful French driver in WRC history, overtaking Didier Auriol's 20 wins.
It was important to stop a bit the victory of Marcus, and also it's the first victory for Kronos, and that's really a good moment, and I took again the lead of the championship, so that's good.
Confirmation of Loeb's first victory of the season there. Further down, both Chris Atkinson and Marcus Gronholm fought their way back into the points despite having to restart. And that win put Loeb into the lead in the Drivers' Championship. Gronholm dropped to 2nd, Manfred Stoll moved up to 3rd. This was also the first win for the Kronos Citroën team, and that meant they moved ahead of Ford in the Manufacturers' Championship.
Sebastian Loeb and Citroën have a formidable record on tarmac. But Marcus Gronholm had suggested before the event that the Ford Focus 06 could beat the Citroën in Spain. And it appeared his confidence wasn't misplaced as he beats Loeb into second place on the first 3 stages.
Good car, really good. Nice to drive. I hope I can keep the same feeling during the rally now. Good.
Mikko Hirvonen was providing further proof of the speed of the Focus as he was fighting it out for a top 3 position. But on stage 5, a freak incident ruined the chances of both the Ford drivers. Within a kilometre of each other, a problem with the wastegate, which controls the pressure within the turbocharger, drained the cars of power. Over this and the following stage, Gronholm lost around 3 minutes, while Hirvonen lost well over 4. So Sebastian Loeb was now the leader, and he was at the head of a Citroën 1-2-3. And the 2 Citroëns behind were both driven by Spaniards. Second was 2005 JWRC champion Daniel Sordo. And in third position was Catalonia's #1 driver Chevy Ponce. Ponce was 4th in Spain last year and was now well placed to top that. But on day 2 he fell foul of one of the hazards of this rally. He skidded on a patch of loose gravel dragged into the road by previous runners on stage 10. There would be no fairy tale podium finish for Ponce. While the 2 leading Citroëns were still dominating, Marcus Gronholm was making sure that he would still deliver as many points as possible here. He charged through the field on day 2, making up 6 places. At the start of the final day, the only man who stood between Gronholm and a podium place was Alex Bengay in the Peugeot 307. The Frenchman held out for one more stage until Gronholm went past, but he and co-driver Caroline Escudero would still be celebrating their best ever WRC result. And Daniel Sordo would also be celebrating his best ever result, and on his home rally as well. Were we witnessing a WRC champion of the future? But from a champion of the future to the champions of the present. After uncertain beginnings this year, Loeb and Daniel Elena registered their second successive win of the season. But for once, the Frenchman would have to share the spotlight with the hero of the home nation, Daniel Sordo. Jan Kopecky also recorded his best ever position. He was 5th. In 7th and 8th positions were the Subarus of Peter Solberg and Stefan Sarazan. Both would have hoped to be challenging for top 3 positions, but neither managed to get enough speed out of the Subaru Pirelli package. The third Subaru driver, Chris Atkinson, also struggled. He was not helped by this off on stage 11.
40, late cut, 6 left plus, opens long.
Peter Solberg down to 5th in the Drivers' Championship. He's falling behind the leading duo of Loeb and Gronholm.
Marcus Gronholm had shown in Spain that he could match Sebastian Loeb's speed on tarmac. But could he beat him in Corsica, the event where Loeb had collected a clean sweep of stage wins in 2005? Loeb won the first stage on day 1, but Gronholm was second. And the Ford driver reversed the order in the second stage and closed to within 5 seconds of Loeb. But Gronholm was never 100% happy with his setup.
The car is very nervous. It's going like this all the time. Like, whoop, whoop, whoop. I don't know. I have to go to check now what's wrong.
And from here on in, it was one-way traffic. Loeb won the next 2 stages and the first of day 2 to open up a lead of nearly 30 seconds. With Loeb taking command at the front, attention switched to the battle for third between Dani Sordo, Mikko Hirvonen in the Ford Focus, and France's Alex Bengay. Bengay was the man in possession of third spot at the end of the first day. He was looking to top his fourth place finish in Spain. But on day two, the strength of Hirvonen's manufacturer Ford Focus and Sordo's Citroën Zara began to eclipse the Frenchman. Sordo's performance was notable in that he had to fight his way back from 13th place after stage one, where he had a problem with his differentials. Corsica's rugged coastline and picturesque villages are the backdrop to some of the WRC's toughest tarmac stages. Racing on a narrow strip of tarmac at high speeds, there's no room for error. Jari-Matti Latvala paid the price for a misjudgment here. François Duval went off on this corner on day two and was forced to retire. Skoda's Andreas Aigner found that most of the roadside obstacles in Corsica don't move if you hit them. While Petter Solberg was again struggling, losing time as early as stage one.
The 6-pipe bus, the big cut, slippy, 2 left.
This spin resulting in a flattened exhaust. There would be no points for the Norwegian in Corsica. For once, Mikko Hirvonen was having a trouble-free run. His main problem being the attentions of Dani Sordo as he fought to hold on to third place. Stage after stage, the Spaniard looked to have got the better of Hirvonen in the early splits, but each time the Finn responded in the second half of the stage to hold on. But on stage 8, the last of day two, Sordo finally got his man and set his sights on his second consecutive podium finish. On the first stage of day 3, Hirvonen demonstrated that he was going to attack, reducing the gap to just 0.4 of a second. But he couldn't match Sordo on the twistier technical stage 10, and by the time the two duelists reached the final stage, number 12, the gap was back up to 5.2 seconds. This was a repeat of stage 10, where Hirvonen had lost time, but he wasn't holding back. His hard work nearly all left in tatters. This replay shows he just completely understeered there. Sordo was unaware, but Hirvonen had been shaken by that moment and had backed off, handing third place to the Spaniard. Up front, it had been another faultless drive from Loeb. This was his 23rd WRC win. He was now level with the legendary Juha Kankkunen.
To win in front of all my French fans is really a good moment.
Marcus Grönholm took second, but he still has some way to go to match Loeb on the black stuff. Loeb now on 46 points in the Drivers' Championship. Grönholm is 11 points behind. Dani Sordo establishes himself in third. After round 5, Kronos Citroën have a 3-point lead over Ford in the Manufacturers' Championship.
Argentina is known for its varied stages and conditions, and the 2006 event had nearly all the elements. There was, of course, plenty of water, some fire, and if not ice, there was some dense fog in the mountains of the Córdoba region. If the conditions were unpredictable, the outcome of this rally seemed to follow a familiar pattern. Petter Solberg needed to put his poor results on the tarmac behind him back on his preferred gravel surface. He had to get his championship challenge back on track. And he was quickest out of the blocks, fastest on the first stage of day one, and leader after stage 4. And luck seemed to be with him as he survived this altercation with a gate post. But as with the rest of the season, luck wasn't with him. His Subaru picked up a puncture on stage 5. The anti-deflation mousse failed to activate, and by the end of the stage, he was running on the rim. This was followed by the familiar sight of Solberg and Phil Mills having to make roadside repairs, and with a broken gearshift paddle and issues with his steering, this scene was repeated on all 3 days. Solberg's day 1 problems saw Marcus Grönholm take over at the top of the leaderboard. The Ford Focus man was now in a great position to repeat his win here in 2003. But his hopes were soon in ruins when his differential locked on stage 8. He couldn't go backwards or forwards. Retirement was the only option. And in a near-mirror image of Rally Catalunya, Grönholm was quickly followed onto the casualty list by his teammate Mikko Hirvonen. The Finn had been in 3rd when he dropped a cylinder on stage 8. Now down to 2 cylinders, he retired on the road section that followed. As in so many previous events, when his main competitors experience problems, Sebastian Loeb swoops to take maximum advantage. Now the leader, Loeb did what he'd done in Mexico, Spain and Corsica, spending the second day building a lead that would be easy to defend on the final day. Petter Solberg's speed had kept him in contention, but he couldn't get close enough to Loeb to pressurise. Also, like previous events, with Loeb looking to have the top spot wrapped up, attention was focused on the battle for the minor positions. It had looked like Gigi Gali wouldn't have a drive in the championship this year following the withdrawal of Mitsubishi, but he returned in a Peugeot 307 backed by Pirelli. And he was making the most of his reprieve as he ended day 1 in 3rd, and as ever, he was giving it everything. Another Peugeot, that of Manfred Stoll, was in 4th, just 4.1 seconds down on Gali after the first stages of day 2. But the Austrian, who was contesting his 100th WRC event, seemed to struggle more than most in the mud and fog of the second morning. He lost his 4th place to his OMV Peugeot teammate Henning Solberg. The Norwegian was progressing up the leaderboard, despite nearly coming off second best after this stage 14 impact with a rock. Rally Argentina is known for its huge numbers of spectators, and 2006 set new records, with the Cordoba police estimating that 1.7 million fans had made it onto the stages. The water splash at Santa Rosa de Calamachita was one of the hot tickets. Manfred Stoll started the final day 43 seconds behind Henning Solberg, but this was Stoll's 8th start in Argentina, while Solberg was debuting here. Experience is essential to find your rhythm around the rocky landscapes of the Mina Clavero and El Condor stages, and Stoll beat Solberg by over a minute over these 2 stages. Henning's bad day was completed when his clutch failed at the Super Specials, which ended the rally. He dropped to 7th. The Super Special was for the first time held in the Cordoba football stadium, and after 3 days of rallying there were still issues to be decided when the crews reached the start line. Danny Sordo had a lead of just 1.1 seconds over Chris Atkinson as he entered the stadium. But Chris could only watch as Sordo did enough to take 5th place. And the race for 8th between local hero Luis Perez Companc and Matthew Wilson was also decided here. The Britain prevailing and claiming his first ever point in the Drivers' Championship when the Argentinian stalled at the start of his first run. No such dramas for Gigi Gali, who grabbed his first ever podium finish. The hard-fought seconds he'd won on day 2 were enough to hold off the charging Manfred Stoll. But this was little more than a lap of honour for Sebastian Loeb, who wrapped up his 24th career win. Daniel Elena has been at his side for all of these, which meant he drew level with Luis Moya as the most successful co-driver of all time. Loeb finished 44.6 seconds ahead of Solberg, who'd made it to the end to claim second place. That moves Solberg up to 4th in the Drivers' Championship. Loeb's lead over Gronholm now 21 points.
Argentina was tough, and history suggested that the Rally d'Italia could be tougher. The stages on the island of Sardinia have developed a reputation as car breakers. But Marcus Gronholm made light of the conditions. He won all 3 stages on the first morning to open up a lead of 40 seconds. And it was good news all round for Ford, as Mikko Hirvonen was second. Sebastian Loeb was, for once, on the back foot. First on the road again, he was slowed by the very slippery, fine gravel that covered the stages. He was struggling for grip, while those behind him were taking advantage of the clean line he left behind. But even on the afternoon's repeated stages, Gronholm was the equal of Loeb, and by the end of the day he still had a lead of more than 35 seconds over the reigning world champion, who was now second. The Big Finn was in charge and brimming with confidence.
Are you worried about